everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you all so much for tuning in today. And today we're going to be doing our part 2 of the Nespresso Holiday Pod 2023 taste test with the original line today. So I have all the original line pods like I talked about in my last video, and we reviewed the virtual line pods in our last video. So if you haven't checked that out and really want to, definitely go back to my last video and see if you like those pods. Definitely give me some recipe recommendations for them. But I'm really excited to get into these original line pods because I've been saving them all week to review with y'all. So I say we get into it. Before we get into each pod, I did want to give a quick little recap on all of the, profiles and intensities of these pods, much like I talked about on their boxes last week. And generally, I'll say that all of these pods are supposed to be very similar in taste profile and intensity as their virtual line counterparts. But we'll see if that taste test actually holds up today. So for the first one, we have the Festive Black Pod, and again, I don't think the name is very different, and I think the intensity is still a 7 out of 13 for the original line, whereas last week for the Virtuo, it was a double espresso and an intensity 7 out of 11 for the Virtual line. So probably a little bit less intense than maybe on the Virtual line scale, but generally the profile is very similar. It's supposed to have woody notes, very spicy. Again, single shot versus a double espresso shot, but I think it's probably going to taste very similar, and we'll see in the taste test. Our next pod is the Caramel Frosted Nut Pod. This one's supposed to be kind of like a lungo, I guess is how they prefer it. And they also recommend it as a cappuccino. So we'll try that today, but much like its 8-ounce counterpart in the Virtual line, it's supposed to be drank kind of like long, not supposed to be very packed and punch like an espresso shot would be. All the designs are also very similar. It doesn't state an intensity on the box or on the website, but generally I'm guessing it's pretty medium to light intensity for these pods, much like the lungos usually are. And then this pod for the original line is kind of a toss-up, and I'll say that because this can be had as an espresso, lungo, or a cappuccino. So I think this is going to be the last pod that we taste test today, just so we can give a variety of different strengths and styles to the pod. But generally, this is the seasonal spice delight pod, very similar to the Virtual line. It's supposed to have those spicy notes, kind of like those jammy, fruity notes. So I'm interested to get into that and see at the very end. But I think first, I say we try the Caramel Frosted Nut Pod, much like we tried that first in the Virtual line, and see how they compare. Okay, so I'm trying it out like a lungo first, much like they recommend it on the box. Right off the bat, the aromatics are very similar to the Virtual line, maybe a little bit less faint, which I noticed with all the Virtual line and the original line counterparts. I just feel like usually the Virtual line is a little bit more aromatic, but maybe that's just me. Let me know your thoughts. But I say we give it a taste. So the aromatics, much like with the Virtual line, are very cakey, very sugary, very caramelly, which I really enjoy, and I think is very inviting to the cup of coffee. Sam wants to be involved in the video today. But as for the actual taste of the pod, I do find it a little bit bland, much like the Virtual line. In fact, I think this is a little bit less bold than the Virtual line, and I think it's a little bit more watered down. Much like I say time and time again with lungos, I just think they're a little bit more watered down. They're not my cup of tea, and it definitely tastes watery. I do think it does pack a little bit of punch though, to the point that if you put it over ice, it'll still stand up to it. But this is definitely not my preference of the two. Of the two, I think the Virtual line is definitely more of my favorite if I had to pick one. But I think I don't get a whole lot of complexity from this pod. I'm just going to be upfront and honest, like I usually try to be in these videos. So I think instead of tasting that like vanilla biscuit notes like they say there are, I'm not really getting any of that. It just kind of tastes like roasty, much like the Virtual pod did, but a little bit more watered down. It is a little bit bold, like I said. I still think it'll stand up to iced coffee. So if I had to give this a rating, I would give it a 6 out of 10. I think I gave this, or the Virtual line, a 6.5. I think this is just a little bit less than what I would like it as well. So definitely a 6 out of 10 for me. Let me know your thoughts. Now, Nespresso also recommends it as a hot cappuccino, much like we talked about earlier, and usually cappuccinos are made with espresso shots rather than long shots like I just did with the lungo. And so for that reason, I'm going to be brewing a whole other pod on the espresso setting and making it into a cappuccino just to give you guys my whole thoughts. But I don't think the rating is going to change that much even in a cappuccino, to be quite frank. Okay, so I made the cappuccino again by putting the pod on the espresso setting, and then I frothed the milk on setting 4 for the milk. because it's supposed to be really frothy for a cappuccino. So I think it created a nice layer of foam. Let's give it a taste. I think that the milk brings out the nice like nutty part of the pod, very biscuity and malty with the milk, but truthfully I do think that it might just be my preference. I do like it a little bit better in the cappuccino form just because I do enjoy milk with my coffee. Again, like I said in my last video, I do really like lattes and stuff, so I'm not surprised that I like this better. Just based off the coffee alone, I'm not like over the moon excited about it, like I said, which is why I'm going to keep the rating, but of the two ways to have it, I do think a cappuccino is a little bit more my style. Very like heartwarming pod, not a whole lot of spiciness or complexity going on. So I don't think you have to commit to making a seasonal drink when you make it hot or iced, which comes with a nice flexibility depending on who you are in the holidays and whether or not you want to invest in all different types of syrups and whatnot to make a holiday beverage. So I do think it's good, and I can still taste a little bit of the carameliness and a little bit of the nuttiness, but I think a lot of that comes from the milk and it being like steamed and all the sugars coming in. So truthfully, I'm going to keep it my rating, but I do like it as a cappuccino, in case we were wondering. Okay, I say we change it up a little bit and go from our lungo to the festive black espresso. Let's give it a try. Wow. Yeah, that smells much like the Referral line double espresso. It smells very dark, very like bold, a little bit woody as well, which again are all the notes that they say is going to be in this pod. So not surprised by that, but let's give it a try. I'm so sorry. My cat is having zoomies, so we'll let him work that out. I think this is more intense than the Referral line. Not that it's bad. I think this would go great in like a toasted iced white mocha if you wanted to make like a nice holiday-based white mocha with this. I think it's good. It's just a little bit too intense for me. I will say, like, kind of like how I said with the festive black and the double espresso form, I thought that for that one anyway, yes, you were hit with a lot of acidity, a lot of boldness, a lot of spiciness towards the front of your palate, but when you swallowed it, it was very easy to swallow. I think that is not the case with the original line version. Again, not that that's bad. I guess it's a little bit reminiscent of the Italiano line that they have with that. I do think it's less acidic than those pods though. So it's kind of a weird in between, still bold, not too acidic, but it's just a little bit hard to swallow like this plain. So that's my take on it. I would definitely say it's woody and bold. I'm gonna give this a solid, like, if I had to pick between the two, I think that this is nice espresso. It would be a very slim margin at which I pick either one, either the original line or the Referral line, but I do think I'd probably pick the Referral line just because it comes in a double espresso already and I don't have to brew two of these to amount to one of those. And I also think I like a little bit less intensity, but that's just my personal preference. If you're liking a bigger punch with your espresso, definitely try this one or buy more of the original line capsule. But that is overall what I think. I think I'm going to rate this probably a 7 out of 10 too. Not too much of a difference, just again, this one comes in a single espresso versus a double espresso, maybe a little bit more of a punch. But generally, I'm probably going to give them the same rating. I think it just depends on the person you are and what you prefer in your holiday beverages. Again, I don't think you can go wrong with getting this if you're more of a flexible latte maker over the holidays. There are some people that I know that die for a holiday latte every single day between November and the end of December into January. That's what they will make all day long, every single day. And me, like, I do like holiday beverages, but I do switch it up. Sometimes I just have a regular plain vanilla latte over the holidays. Sometimes I go with the whole peppermint mocha, eggnog latte, chestnut praline, whatever it may be. So if you find yourself more of a flexible person, maybe have some of these in your repertoire just so you're not holidayed out with the drinks. But that is my review, 7 out of 10, staying with that. Oh my goodness. This is like almost the exact same smell as a Vertuo line. It's very like spicy, kind of like pine needle-y. I know that sounds weird, like juniper, I guess is what it is. I don't know. It's very like earthy, but also very spicy and very fruity too. I don't know how they do this. Wow. That just smells like, it's so warming, like I said. And I'm actually kind of pleased with the color. I don't think it's too light of a lungo looking color, if that makes sense. I feel like sometimes when you brew lungos, they're a little bit too light and you go into it and you're like, nah, that's not gonna taste good. But this one looks a little bit inviting, so let's try it. Okay, I went into this thinking that I was gonna like it a lot more than I actually do. However, I am, out of all the lungos I've tried in the original line, I'm actually very pleased with this, as well as a couple others that I've talked about throughout the year with trying these new lungos that they have. I don't think this tastes watered down at all, which is very surprising. Usually, much like I talked about with the caramel frosted nut, you get that Vertuo taste, but it's just kind of really watered down. Not to the point that that one tastes like dirt, you know, but this one definitely doesn't taste like dirt, definitely is not watered down, so I give them big kudos for that. Smell is absolutely amazing. I will say I don't get as much of the spiciness as I did with the Vertuo line. I don't get a lot of depth and complexity with this one. It does taste a little bit roasty, but very acidic in the beginning, which I didn't get with the Vertuo pod. So it's hard for me to rate this one, truthfully. I think I'm gonna give this one probably a 7 out of 10 too. I might buy this one. Again, if I have to give a preference, it would be to the Vertuo line, which is why I think I rated that 8 out of 10. This one, solid 7, just because definitely less favorite than the Vertuo line, but I just, you know, I have to give them props for it not tasting like watered down dirt like I usually feel like the lungos do, but also just the nice smell, the aromatics, and there is some taste there, and I think that this would hold up really, really well in an iced coffee, especially if you wanted to make like a gingerbread iced coffee or something along the lines of that. I think this would make a delicious iced coffee or bigger iced coffee if you wanted to make or put two lungos together. So that is my opinion, 7 out of 10 all the way, but I think if you have a Vertuo line machine, you should be going for the Vertuo line for almost all of these pods. Personally, maybe if you want to do the original line, like single espresso, that, you know, that's totally fine. I think it just depends on the person you are, but I have really been liking the Vertuo line for all of these so far. But that is me speaking a little bit prematurely. Let's have the espresso shot now, and we'll make a cappuccino. Not gonna lie, when I first tried the Vertuo version of this pod, the seasonal delight spices or whatever it is, I was thinking, like, I wonder what this would taste like in a latte with an espresso form. And I'm so glad they decided to make one. And I'll admit, the aromatics are still very much there. Definitely a little bit more faint than they were with the lungo, but you can definitely still smell the spiciness, that warm, inviting holiday cup. I definitely pick up more of the fruitiness and the acidity in the espresso version of this and in the lungo version. I do like it. I think that, again, it brings a little bit more flexibility at play for the espresso version of this, because I don't think that the spices are too overpowering to the point that you need to always make a holiday beverage with it. But I do think that if you just wanted a subtle spice to your lattes or espresso, this is definitely a really good option. I'm still going to keep it at a 7 out of 10 because I rated the Festive Black the same way, and I think that it's very similar in that regard, in that you can kind of make a little bit more of a holiday drink with it, and you could also not make a holiday drink with it, especially the espresso version of this pod. I think the Vertuo version is definitely a little bit more of a set holiday drink making item for that, item or coffee. So yeah, I'm still going to keep it at a 7 out of 10, but overall, I think the espresso is good. I prefer it in more of an espresso than I would a lungo, but I'm interested to try it in a cappuccino, so let's make it that way. Last but not least, we have our very beautiful cappuccino. Foam, looking great. Let's give it a try. I really like this in a cappuccino over the frosted caramel nut pod. Wow, you can like really taste the difference between the two pods and a cappuccino versus not. I really like this. I think that the milk kind of tones down the spiciness and brings out the fruit in the pod, which I was not expecting. So definitely, if you're, I guess, choosing a way to have it, I recommend it in a cappuccino. I'm interested to see how it would be in an iced cappuccino, how much of that fruitiness and, spiciness stays in the pod, but this is really good. Wow. Yeah, that acidity is not there because of course the milk is kind of covering that up, but the spiciness and fruitiness are just, oh my God, with this milk, it tastes really good. So yeah, that is my overall rating of all of these original line pods. I'm interested to see what you guys think about these original line pods. For those of you who have gotten them already, please let me know how you guys feel about each of these pods. Are you vibing with my ratings? Are you not? And if you have any recipes that you all enjoy with these pods, definitely let me know. I also wanted to get your guys' input on whether or not I should buy the advent calendars for this year. I have so many pods right now, but part of me really wants to do another Vlogmas series this year. I'll see how it goes. My application season is dying down, so I have a lot less to do. Of course, work is still very much a lot of my day. However, I don't know, I'm going home early for the holidays this year, or earlier than I did last year. So I'm trying to see how I can do like a daily, taking open the pod type of thing and showing you guys, because part of my time will be in Florida where I do not have access to my Nespresso machines at that point in time. So we will see. Maybe we could just do a whole day of me going through the pods in each slot. I don't like to ruin it like that. I really do like to have an every single day advent calendar opening because it just brings me so much joy. But let me know what you guys think, if it's worth it or not. I'm kind of intrigued to buy it, but I know they're a little bit expensive, so we'll see. But yeah, I think next week we'll finally get into the Starbucks virtual line holiday pod and the caramel pod. I know I've been kind of like not getting on that. I really wanted to review these holiday ones first, so that you guys can determine whether you want to go on and buy it. But we'll probably do that. And then I'd love to give you guys kind of a coffee wish list for those who you're buying gifts for that are also coffee lovers, what maybe I would recommend you get them, because I really have been liking certain coffee items around my coffee bar, and I think that other people, if you know anybody who really loves and enjoys coffee as well as yourself, if you want to treat yourself, I want you guys to know what I would recommend too. So yeah, please let me know if you have any recommendations for me for Christmas. And other than that, I will see you guys next week to review the Starbucks Virtual Pod and the Caramel Virtual Pod. Okay? Bye, guys.